The air in the courtroom felt heavy and tensed with anticipation. I stood inside the dock, my heart pounding against my ribcage like a drum. My wrists were uncomfortably chained, a grim reminder of the gravity of my situation. The judge sat high above me, his eyes scanning the room, stopping occasionally on me as if trying to penetrate deep into my soul. "Mr. Reyes," he called, breaking the silence, "you are charged with assault. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," I responded, my voice steady. Inside, however, I felt a storm brewing. The murmurs of the spectators buzzed through the room, like bees swarming around a hive. The judge leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand and regarding me with curiosity. "If you're not guilty, then I expect you to present your side of the story. What led to this incident?" I took a deep breath, willing myself to remain calm. It all began on the night of the incident. I went to the bar with friends, just a regular outing. Laughter, drinks, and, of course, that infamous jukebox spitting out our favorite tunes. As I began to share my recollection, every detail came flooding back to me. I could feel the warmth of the bar buzzing around me, momentarily taking me back to that night. "Kate was there," I continued, a slight hitch in my voice. "My girlfriend. We had been together for a few months, and I thought everything was perfect." The words tumbled out of me, the court's attention locked onto my narrative, and I could see the judge's brow furrow as I relayed the details. But that night, something felt off. I noticed her laughing a little too much with someone else. I glanced around the room, feeling exposed. It was Kevin, my best friend. I could see the two of them, all smiles and whispers, and a sense of unease began to creep over me. "What do you mean by unease?" the judge asked, his tone probing. "The kind that twists in your gut." I felt something dark and primal awaken inside me. Jealousy, anger, confusion. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. My voice wavered, and I could feel the eyes of the gallery boring into me. I decided to confront them. The judge nodded slowly. "And how did that confrontation go?" I hesitated. The memories were fresh and painful. I marched over, my heart racing. All I wanted was to understand why they were so close. I shouted at them. I said things I shouldn't have. "What's wrong with you two? Where's your loyalty, Kevin?" The courtroom erupted with whispers as I spoke. But I didn't care about the consequence at that moment. I just wanted the truth. "And what did you find?" the judge prompted, leaning closer. "I found betrayal," I said, biting back the emotion bubbling in my throat. Kate stood there, frozen, shocked. Kevin just shrugged it off like he didn't care if he hurt me. Another ripple of murmuring passed through the crowd as I continued. The anger spiraled until it consumed me. I was furious, not just at him, but at myself. What was I doing? I went into panic mode. I needed to make a statement to show them both that I couldn't just stand there. "Did you think about the consequences of your actions?" the judge asked, his voice steady. "No," I admitted, the guilt flooding through me. In that moment, I didn't care about anything else. I just wanted to make them understand how much they'd hurt me. "Go on," the judge instructed. I didn't realize how far I'd gone until it was too late. I started shouting, blaming them for everything, a heated exchange that spiraled out of control. Words were weapons. I didn't care how deeply I cut, I just wanted them to feel my pain. "Were you aware that someone called the police?" he asked, his voice even, probing for deeper details. "No, I didn't know until it was too late," I confessed. The adrenaline had taken over. I saw red. I guess I punched Mark, but I don't remember the exact moment or even why I did it. I replayed that night a million times. My voice faltered. In my mind, I thought I was fighting for something, but in reality, I was just fighting myself. The judge watched me closely, his expression unreadable, but I could sense that he was drawing something from my words. "Did you intend to hurt him?" he asked, his gaze steady. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," I replied, the weight of my actions pressing down on me. But in that moment, I felt like I had no choice. My emotions just took over. Suddenly, the door to the courtroom swung open with a creak. The prosecutor, Miss Harris, stepped in, her eyes sharp as she surveyed the room. She stood with a confidence that felt unnerving. "Thank you, Your Honor," she began just as I had finished. Turning to face me, her expression hardened. "Mr. Reyes, you claim you didn't intend to hurt anyone, yet you threw the first punch. How do you explain this contradiction?" "I wasn't thinking straight," I shouted, frustration spilling over. "I wanted to stand up for myself. I didn't mean for it to escalate." "Yet it did," she interjected, a hint of smugness in her voice. "Mark still ended up in the hospital. Broken ribs. Do you understand the pain you caused?" "Yes, and I regret it," I pleaded, my voice shaking. "I'm sitting here, facing the consequences. But you have to understand. Disappointment turned into rage, and I lost control." "And upon that loss of control," she continued, moving closer with an almost predatory gleam in her eye, "didn't you feel empowered in some twisted way? Like you were finally taking back something that was stolen?" "No, I felt trapped," I said, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "This isn't about empowerment, it's about regret, about realizing what I did was completely wrong." The judge tapped his gavel, and silence fell over the room. He regarded me thoughtfully before turning his gaze to Miss Harris. "Let's stay focused on the facts, Miss Harris," he said. "Mr. Reyes, what do you remember happening right after the confrontation?" "I remember chaos, people screaming, pulling me away once I hit Mark," I said. "I blacked out after that. When I woke up, there were sirens and flashing lights everywhere. Cops were all around, and I was handcuffed." Miss Harris lifted an eyebrow. "You remained blissfully unaware, didn't you? A coward's way out." My blood boiled at her words. "I wasn't a coward. I was overwhelmed." The judge raised his hand. "Enough, Mr. Reyes. We're not here to discuss the prosecutor's opinions of your character. Let's focus on the real issue, your actions that night. You said you blacked out, but tell me, do you think it's possible to lose control of your actions entirely?" "Doubt lingers in my mind," I admitted carefully, but I think the anger took over. It became my only focus. "Do you have any recollection of what you did to Mark while you were aware?" "I remember hitting him, Your Honor. I remember the blood and the chaos." My voice broke slightly, and I felt myself trembling. "But most of that confrontation is a blur." The judge scrutinized me. "And you are saying that in this blur, you can't recall if you willingly decided to hurt him or simply lost control?" "Exactly," I said, my heart racing. "I can't say for sure. It felt like something inside me snapped. I wasn't myself." Miss Harris stepped forward, her expression fierce. "A classic plea, claiming temporary insanity. But what's the evidence? Where's the proof?" Her voice boomed, challenging me. "I don't know," I stammered. "I can't provide proof of something I can't explain." The judge leaned back in his chair, putting his hands together. "This is important, Mr. Reyes. Understanding the motivation behind your actions might lead us to a clearer resolution." My mind raced, grappling with the enormity of the question. It was a combination of betrayal and anger. I thought I couldn't take it anymore. I guess I wanted to make Mark feel a sliver of what I felt. "And that is fundamentally troubling," the judge replied, his voice steady. "You wanted to inflict that pain." "No!" I shouted, the emotions spilling over again. "I just wanted to understand how it felt to be in control again. I wanted to be heard. But in your quest for validation, you ignored the fallout," the judge pointed out. "You chose violence over communication. You turned an emotional situation into physical harm." I hung my head, realizing the weight of my actions. "Yes, I see that now." "Let's step back," Miss Harris said, crossing her arms. "You said you cared for Kate. Did you consider her feelings in that moment? Did you think about how your actions would hurt her?" "No, I didn't think about her," I admitted, regret lacing my words. "That's what haunts me most now. I was too wrapped up in my feelings." "There it is," Miss Harris pressed. "Selfishness. You put your needs above others, which led to this complete disregard for human life. Mark's life." The judge raised a hand, silencing her. Your point is made, Miss Harris. He turned toward me. Mr. Reyes, do you understand the significance of your actions, not just for you, but for all involved? Yes, Your Honor, I replied, voice trembling. I understand now. I realize the ripple effect of my choices. I was selfish and blind. Good, the judge said, softening slightly. Acknowledgement is the first step toward redemption. What you need now is to find a way to atone for what you've done. I nodded, my mind racing with thoughts of what that might entail. I want to make things right. I don't want to be that person anymore. The judge looked thoughtful. It's all too easy to regress into old habits when anger consumes you, Mr. Reyes. The true test comes when you face this anger without resorting to violence. Miss Harris chimed in again. But will he? Knowing that he can lash out and end up in trouble again isn't a lesson learned. It's a lesson ignored. What do you propose, Miss Harris? The judge asked, curious about her take. I propose a significant sentence, Your Honor, she declared, crossing her arms. Let him serve time to reflect on the choices he made, the pain he caused. Time isn't always the remedy, Miss Harris, the judge replied. It's what a person does with that time that truly matters. That's exactly my point, she shot back. What if Mr. Reyes finds himself in a situation that triggers that anger again and loses control? My proposal will ensure that he understands his consequences. As I sat there, I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice. The words hung in the air, coiling around me like a serpent, tightening with each passing second. The judge turned to me once again, his gaze intense. Mr. Reyes, should you be sentenced, what do you believe would aid your understanding of accountability? I want to attend counseling, I said quickly, adrenaline surging. I want to work through the anger and learn how to communicate better. The judge nodded. That is a step in the right direction. Acknowledging the need for help is crucial, but if the time comes and you fail to comply with this court order, the consequences will be steep. I understand, Your Honor, I replied, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within me. Very well, he said firmly. We will take a recess. When we reconvene, the jury will hear more of what happened that night. How you respond will decide the path ahead. As the gavel swung down, a wave of murmurs swept across the room, a fog of uncertainty lingering. My heart raced as I considered the gravity of what lay ahead. I would have to confront the truth, and I wasn't sure whether I was ready. The courtroom emptied, and as I caught a glimpse of Kate in the gallery, her face fell as she realized the enormity of our predicament. I wanted to shout to her, to apologize, but the words locked inside me like a cage. The jury returned, and I felt the weight of their judgment pressing down like a lead blanket. They filed in, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. When the judge returned to his seat, the room quieted. Now that we're back, it's time to deliberate, he stated, looking directly at the jury. You've heard the testimonies and seen the conflicts at play. It's your duty to decide the consequence of Mr. Reyes' actions. Miss Harris stood again, her voice sharp and authoritative. Thank you, Your Honor. Before we proceed, I want to remind the jury of the impact this incident had on the victim. She gestured toward Mark, who sat quietly, nursing a painful expression that seemed to echo the weight of my actions. Mark sustained serious injuries, she continued, voice steady yet forceful. He was left in the hospital, physically and emotionally scarred by the violence he suffered. This isn't just a matter of anger and jealousy, it's a matter of human decency. The jurors shifted slightly, some exchanging glances. Mark's eyes flicked to me before returning to the floor, pain written all over his features. To do nothing would mean giving a green light to uncontrollable outbursts of rage and violence, she declared, her tone rising, seeking to capture their attention. We need to send a message that such behavior will not be tolerated. My heart pounded as the weight of those words settled over me like a storm cloud. My pulse quickened, and I felt a tightness in my chest. I glanced to the judge, whose serious expression mirrored my own thoughts. Mr. Reyes, he said, breaking the tension, Do you have anything to add before we deliberate? I stood, taking a deep breath. Only that I wish I could take back what I've done, I said, my voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was consumed by my emotions, and I wish I'd been better than that. Pain's silence enveloped the room. I turned my gaze back to Mark, searching for any sign of understanding or forgiveness, but he looked away. Your Honor, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. I'm willing to accept responsibility for my actions and to take the steps necessary to make amends. I just need the chance to prove I can change. The judge regarded me with contemplation. All right, a character witness may have a significant impact on this case. If there's someone who can vouch for your character, it may sway the jury. At that moment, I thought of my sister, Sophia. She would always stand by me no matter what. My sister, I stammered. She could speak on my behalf. She knows me well. The judge nodded, a knowing expression crossing his face. Very well. We will reconvene after a short recess. Prepare for your sister's testimony. In the meantime, I suggest you think about what you truly want moving forward. As I sat back down, dread washed over me. Did I truly want to hear what my sister had to say? Would it change anything? A piece of me longed for redemption, while another felt deep-seated shame. The courtroom buzzed as I waited for Sophia to arrive. I grabbed my hands together, mind racing. What would she say? Would she defend my actions or highlight my faults? When she entered, wearing a steadfast expression, I felt a rush of relief wash over me. Maybe she would understand. Sophia approached the stand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The judge asked, looking down at her. I do, she replied, steady and composed. Please state your relationship to Mr. Reyes, he prompted, folding his hands together. I'm his sister, Sophia said, and I could hear the quiet strength in her voice. The judge nodded. What can you tell us about your brother's character? Sophia took a deep breath, glancing briefly toward me. Javier is more than just a brother to me. He's kind, compassionate, and loyal. But, like anyone, he has his flaws. I shifted uncomfortably on my seat, the truth stinging. Lately, he's struggled with his emotions, she continued, her voice steady. He's been dealing with a lot. The pressure from work, personal relationships, is weighed heavily on him. Is that an excuse for his actions? Miss Harris interjected sharply. Does struggling mean it's okay to react violently? Sophia didn't flinch. No, it doesn't. That's part of what he is facing, learning to manage those decisions better. And has he taken steps to reconcile those issues? The judge asked. Yes, she replied firmly. He's been seeing a counselor, attending anger management classes. He's trying to change. Do you believe he is capable of change? The judge pressed. I do, she stated, meeting his gaze with conviction. But he has to want it, and I think this situation has shown him just how far he's strayed. He's learned the hard way. I felt a sigh of relief escape my lips as I listened to her words, but anxiety still washed over me. Would the jury buy it? The judge turned to Miss Harris. Do you have any further questions? No, Your Honor, she replied, crossing her arms again, an air of resignation about her. He nodded, turning to Sophia. Thank you for your testimony. You may step down. As Sophia exited the stand, I felt a flicker of hope. Thank you for believing in me, I whispered as she passed by. She paused, offering me a brief, encouraging smile before I returned to the hollow space of my thoughts. The courtroom reconvened, and the tension in the atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with tension as the judge returned to his seat, the gravity of the moment settling over everyone like a heavy curtain. The jurors sat motionless, faces inscrutable, and I felt each heartbeat echo in my ears. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge began, it's time for you to deliberate. You hold in your hands the power to determine the consequence of Mr. Reyes' actions that fateful night. As he spoke, I felt the weight of my choice pressing down on me. I had reached my breaking point, and I knew at that moment that I was being offered a chance, an opportunity to reflect on my mistakes and try to mend the rift I'd created. Do you understand? I whispered to myself, staring straight ahead. This isn't just about punishment, it's about redemption. As the jury filed out, I exchanged glances with Mark, who now wore a mixture of anger and resignation. In that brief moment, I understood that we were both victims of my choices. Then my sister squeezed my shoulder, offering silent encouragement. No matter the outcome, I was determined to embrace the path to recovery, work on the anger that had nearly destroyed me, and ensure that I would never let it control me again. The gavel sounded, reverberating through the chamber, and I breathed deeply, ready to face whatever awaited me. And finally, as the door swung shut behind the jurors, I held on to hope, a fragile, flickering flame deep within my heart that said this was not the end, but a new beginning.